Hello guys, happy Tuesday, and have I got a treat for you? So this video is a little bit different because a few weeks ago when I did one of my lives, so if you aren't aware, I recently started doing lives once a month, and within the last YouTube live we had a few conversations about food. So I know a few of you actually gave me some challenges and asked me could I do a £10 a week food budget. Now during the live I was like, yeah, of course, that's fine. I tend to budget about £15 to £16 a week, so of course I was going to take that challenge on, and so I decided that this week I was going to give myself a £10 food budget. Now I will just say that there is a massive difference between £15 to £16 a week versus £10 a week. So what we're going to do in this video is I'm going to talk through my process, what my plan actually was, and then how I did when I went shopping, and then any key learnings I took from this weekly food budget. Now if you are interested, I do actually have a video where I talk about my £16 a week food budget in a bit more detail, so you can see what I tend to spend and what I tend to buy during the week. So if you do want to check that video out, then I will link that up here for you and in the description below. But in this video obviously we're going to be going through the challenge, and yeah, let's just get to it. I'm not even going to lie to you, it was a challenge. So the first thing I did is I actually made a list on my phone. Now this is something that I usually tend to do anyway with my food budget, so it wasn't really anything different, but what was actually quite different is the fact that I really had to be very strict with how much I was going to spend and think about the cost as well, because obviously I didn't want to go over the £10 budget. So really I had to plan exactly what I would want for breakfast, lunch and dinner. So when it came to breakfast, to be honest, I thought that my breakfast is usually cheap anyway, so I usually tend to buy oats, so I knew that that was going to be relatively cheap, so that didn't really change. The things that did really change were my lunch and dinner, and the main reason was because I only had £10, I didn't really think I would have enough to buy chicken or some type of meat, so I did need to find alternatives, and I knew I did need some form of protein because I do tend to exercise and I do actually need protein. So this is really where the challenge came in, because for me it was quite difficult, and I know a lot of people tend to have alternatives like beans or something like that, but I'm not a massive fan of beans, so I couldn't actually buy that. So yeah, it was a little bit tough, to be honest. So what I decided to do was actually go to Lidl and do my weekly shop. Alright, so this week I am taking a trip to Lidl. My goal is to stick to £10. I've made a list, I'm ready, let's go. Okay, so obviously I meal planned everything, and when it came to breakfast I basically have the same thing every day anyway, so for me I wasn't really too bothered. So I got 3 things for breakfast. The first thing was oats, second was blueberries, and then the third was soya milk. So for me, when it comes to oats, that cost me about 75p. To be honest, that is going to last me at least a month, so it's something that I usually don't have to buy very often, and I actually don't mind. I mean, some people might be thinking the quality is not that great, but to be honest, I actually think it tastes fine, so I will usually have that with blueberries anyway, so I decided to get blueberries. I was actually thinking, is blueberries going to be a bit overboard in terms of my £10 food budget, but I really do enjoy blueberries and they are good for you, so I decided that I was going to stick with that. So the blueberries actually cost me about £1.29, so I'm not complaining about that price at all. And then obviously with the soya milk, that only cost me 55p. So with breakfast, it's very, very cheap. That will usually last me for the week, so I was very happy with that. So I've got my porridge here. It might not look amazing, but it actually tastes quite good, and if I could afford it I could put a bit of honey in there, but that didn't obviously stretch in my budget. Then when it came to lunch, I did have to be careful about that because I was probably going to spend a bit more for dinner than my lunch. So usually with lunch I like to have eggs. I eat eggs every single day. I never get bored with it. I have no idea why, but for me it's got protein and it's just happy days for me, so I don't mind having eggs. But because I knew that I was going to have eggs for my dinner, I couldn't actually have it for my lunch, so I had to have something else. So what I decided to do is that I would have a sandwich instead. So I was going to have toast, peanut butter and bananas, and that is going to be my lunch for the week. So usually I like to buy these little toasties from Lidl, and they're quite nice, and I think they're like, what, 90p or something? I don't actually remember the price, but yeah, I knew that I probably can't afford to buy that with this budget, so I had to go for the Simply bread or whatever it's called. So I usually eat wholemeal bread, and that cost me 36p. I'm not going to lie, I don't know what the quality is going to be like. I think I've maybe only had that bread once, but obviously I was on a tight budget, so I did have to buy that bread. But the good news is that bread is actually going to last me probably more than the week, so I can't complain too much about that. The bread doesn't look that appetizing, neither does the peanut butter. And then next, obviously I had to get bananas so that I could have that with my bread. Obviously the only thing is that usually I will maybe have avocados, and I'm not gonna lie, I could not afford to have avocados with this budget if I wanted to have a decent dinner, so that had to be tossed aside. However, However, I do like to eat bananas as well, so that's something that I didn't mind doing. Obviously with the packet bananas, I could see that it was more expensive, so I actually tend to buy loose bananas anyway. So I actually weighed them on the scale just to see how much they're likely to be, and so I bought 7 bananas and it turned out to be at an affordable price. And actually when it came to it, it only cost me 86 pence for those 7 bananas. So for me, that was money well spent. Then next up was dinner. Now this was really the interesting one. So I decided that I was actually going to prepare 2 meals for dinner. Now usually I'm very boring and I will happily have 1 meal for the whole week, because usually on weekends sometimes I will have takeout, or maybe I'll go to a restaurant or something like that. So for me, during the working week, I'm happy to just have the same meal because I really don't care about that stuff. So this was something where I wanted to try out 2 different things as well. So especially if you are looking to have a weekly food budget and if you don't really want to have just 1 meal for that week. So I decided I was actually going to have 2 meals. So the first one I was going to do is I was actually going to make egg fried rice, and then the second one that I was going to do was I was actually going to make a Spanish omelette. So again, eggs were really going to be my main protein source, so I needed to make sure that there was enough eggs for the week. And so I decided that I was going to buy the pack of 15 eggs, so hopefully that means I could have maybe a couple of eggs every single day. Actually, I tend to have these eggs every single week anyway, so it wasn't really very different for me. Again, I tend to have those eggs for lunch rather than dinner, but to be honest, beggars can't be choosers, so I just had to keep going. And yeah, this was going to be my dinner. So of course I decided to buy the pack of Simply eggs for £1.18, and I actually don't mind. The eggs usually taste fine to me. Obviously there were other eggs that you could buy which were about £1.79, but I'm not even going to lie to you, when you have a £10 a week budget, that 61 pence is actually going to make a difference. So for me, you know, you just have to take what you can, and I decided that I was going to buy those eggs. And so with my egg fried rice, obviously I had my eggs and then I had to go and buy rice. So I had looked for the cheapest rice possible, and to be honest, for me, I don't tend to cook rice that often, just based on what I like and because it's really filling for me. But at this point in time, I only had £10 a week and I don't think I could afford sweet potatoes or anything like that, so rice was gonna have to be it. So I did go to look for rice, which cost me about 45 pence, which is definitely very cheap. That rice probably will last me more than the week, so I do think that that will last me quite a long time. And then next up was a pack of onions. So of course with my egg fried rice, I did have to have onions, so that cost me about 57p, and I think I had a pack of 8 onions, so it actually wasn't too bad. So there were obviously other brands which were a bit more expensive, but from what I could see, that was the cheapest one, so of course I was going to go for it. It looks alright. The only thing that I would say is that the rice was a bit starchy, so I could tell that the quality wasn't amazing. But apart from that, I did have to cheat a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, I did have to season it because otherwise I think it just would have tasted really bland. So if you know about Maggi cubes, then you know. But it tastes alright, and yeah, hopefully this will do me for a couple of days. And with my Spanish omelette, obviously I would have eggs and onions, but I also wanted to have spinach in that as well. However, when I did go to Lidl, there was no spinach left, and usually I think that would cost around 99 pence. They did have other spinach, but based on my budget, I think it was a bit too expensive, so I couldn't actually get that spinach, so I did have to compromise and I decided to get kale instead. Now I don't actually know if I like kale because I don't really know if I've had it very often, but kale looked like it was the cheapest thing there, and I did need something green, and it was discounted by 22%, so it was only costing me 49p for a whole pack of kale. So again, I knew that was going to last me the week, so I decided to buy it. Now I also got peppers. I wasn't actually sure if I was able to get peppers because I did have a feeling that it was maybe going to bring me over budget, but I still decided that I was going to just take the risk and get peppers. If I went over the budget, then I went over, but I got them. I got a pack of 3 bell peppers and that cost me £1.29, so all good. And so after that, it was going to be a pack of frozen mixed vegetables so that I can have that both with my fried rice and my Spanish omelette as well. So that cost me about 79 pence. Usually I will buy frozen vegetables because I do think it's actually cheaper than fresh vegetables. So for me, that's something that I'm used to buying anyway, so there were no complaints there. Quick look at my Spanish omelette. I'm not gonna lie, I did end up breaking it into pieces, but apart from that, I'm actually quite proud, and it actually tastes really nice as well. So this is definitely a good meal to have. So when I went to the till and I was thinking, have I gone over my budget or have I gone under? I was so surprised to see that not only did I reach my £10 limit, but I actually went under. So yes, my weekly shop at Lidl came to about £8.93. I was so shocked, guys. I honestly couldn't believe it. I genuinely thought I probably would have gone just over £10, but the fact that I actually had £1.07 left to play with, I was so excited. So of course, the one thing that I did is I took a trip to Sainsbury's and I went to go and get sweet and salted popcorn, because for some reason, at least in my little shop, I can't see any sweet and salted popcorn. So maybe it's because it's a relatively small store, I don't know, but it meant that I could have a sweet snack, so I was elated. So what were the key learnings from this weekly shop? Well, the first thing I would say is something that I usually do anyway, but it's really planning out your meals, because if I wasn't able to plan, I probably would have gone over my weekly shop. So for me, planning out exactly what I was going to have for breakfast, lunch and dinner, and maybe some snacks really helped me out. So I would definitely recommend that if you are trying to reduce your food budget. The next learning is something that I also tend to do, but I don't really tend to do it as much as I had to do it when I was shopping at Lidl, was really actually looking at the cost per kilogram or cost per gram, so then I could understand exactly how cheap or expensive something was. And this was really useful when it came to me trying to buy spinach, because spinach that I usually get is a lot cheaper than the other spinach that they were offering, and I could see that per kilograms the other spinach was a lot more expensive. So that's why I had to go with kale, because then I was going to have a bit more bang for my buck. Now again, with things like that, if you're looking more for quality, then you probably won't really be looking at that price. But obviously if you're on a food budget and quality is kind of out the window a little bit, then I would be looking at how much it's costing per kilograms or grams, for example. Now, am I personally going to be doing £10 weekly food shops? No, I don't think so. I realized that that £6, even though it might not seem that much, it is actually a huge difference for me, because it means that I'm able to buy a bit more meat or chicken, for example, because I do eat things like that. Obviously if you're vegan, then it might be a bit easier for you to do something that's £10 a week, because you can also look for alternatives. But even with that £10 weekly food budget, you might want to have a bit more variety, and that's something that I kind of felt like I was a bit restricted on. So because I was restricted to £10, there was only so many fruits that I could buy, or so many snacks that I could buy as well. So for me, I probably wouldn't do a £10 a week food budget all the time, but if you're, for example, a student, or maybe it comes to the end of the month where you've spent a whole load of your money and you don't really have that much left, then potentially you could do this £10 a week food budget, maybe for the last week, for example. But again, everyone's circumstances are very different. This is something that I just wanted to try out and see if I could do, and I'm actually really happy that I was able to do it and that it's slightly feasible, but I definitely would not be doing this every single week. So yeah, it was definitely a fun challenge to do. So if you did like this video, then please do give me a thumbs up if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments, do you think you could have a £10 or $10 weekly food budget? I do post every Tuesday and Friday, so if you would like to know more, then of course you can subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys on Friday.